Hi guys, so we're going to just review a little bit of what we did in class. I'm going to do a quick tutorial on setting up your workspace for animation. So what we did in class was we created a new document. We went to film video and selected the HD preset, which was 1920 by 1080, and selected create. We were presented with our guides, which we were able to turn off using command semicolon. And we turned on our ruler, Command R, to show the ruler so that we would be able to drag more guides in if we wanted. The three keyboard shortcuts for zooming in and out and kind of zeroing out were Command minus to zoom out, Command plus to zoom in, and Command 0 allowed us to go full screen with a single command. Another thing we learned was the spacebar was used to get the panning tool, which allowed us to move around when we're zoomed in quite a bit. We started with the move tool, V for move, and we made sure to turn off the auto select. And under Photoshop or file preference or Photoshop preferences, we went to the performance area and we set our history state to 150. So this is where we started initially. We talked about how to turn the background layer into a normal layer by double clicking it and making it into a layer that's not locked. I'm just going to hit learn more and turn this off. We talked about using the little plus symbol next to the garbage can in the layers area to create a new layer. We made that layer like a test layer, just to show how these static layers work. And we used the brush tool, B for brush, to just draw something on this static layer. As you can kind of see, if we turn the static layer off and on, it actually is going to be on that layer. We created a new layer and then we tried different brushes. So under our brush settings here at the top, I wish these tools would not pop up. We opened this area up and we saw that we could actually change the size of the brush and the hardness of the brush to make it harder or softer. So you can see this has got a little bit of a softness. We used the bracket keys to make our brush bigger, brackets, and smaller, right? And then we went in and used some new brushes in the dry brush media, and the one we used specifically for class was Kyle's Ultimate Pencil Hard, which gives us a look of being of like a pencil look. So when you zoom in to this, you can kind of see there's a pencil line look here. We talked about changing the colors out. So by default, D for default, we have black and white background, but you can pick a different color for the foreground color, and that'll allow you to draw with that color. X switches the two, so you could draw with white and then switch and then draw with blue. So that's one way. Going D for default to go back to our default. We then talked about creating a video layer. So the video layer we did was under the layers palette, but in order to do that we had to change our window workspace to motion, which we did initially, and that gave us a timeline at the bottom and a whole different set of properties here. Then what we did was select layers as soon as the thing stops spinning. There we go, something weird. Video layers, new blank video layer. And that initiated a new layer called layer 2 here. We're going to go ahead and call this pencil test. And we then got our timeline at the bottom here. I'm just going to close this off. And we saw that it was 5 seconds, and you can kind of see at the bottom that it says 29.97 frames per second. We were able to zoom in and out of that timeline. And the first thing we did before we started anything was to set the time frame rate to 12, which is really important. We then made sure that our timeline shortcut keys, the left and right arrows, were selected and on. We then made sure that looping was also checked. So now we have these three checked. We talked a little bit about onion skinning. So turning on onion skin is right here. so that you can see before and after. Then what we did is we turned off our other layers except for the background, and just so you can see how this is functioning, I'm going to show you the video layer here, and we drew on that video layer. And when we drew and then use the arrow key to go to the next layer, you can see that a frame was created right here. And so this next layer has no frame, so if we went to draw the number 1 here, then use the arrow, you see it actually makes a frame. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That was a bad 8. 9. I'm doing this with the mouse, unfortunately. 10, 11, and then 12. At this point, we've drawn 12 frames. So if we wanted to loop at 12 frames, we brought our little timeline thing here back in, and I'm going to keep it off that altered video by a little bit. I'm going to close this back up so you don't have to see it. And now you can see that we see all 12 frames playing at 12 frames per second, and on our pencil test video layer. If you wanted to add a new video layer, you can put the playhead back at the beginning, select layer, video layer, and then new blank video layer. That'll make another video layer, and this layer will have the 12 frames per second property because that's the entire thing. And so at this point you could draw like on this layer, you can see I'm just enhancing each of these numbers. So even though it's even though it's on a different video layer, I'm seeing what's underneath because each of these layers has a transparent background, so I can kind of see through and see underneath. So in this way you'll get a lot more how do you call it, just a richer animation, because you'll have more layers, each one contributing something. And if you make a mistake, you can always turn that layer off or delete the layer. If you've made something that's really awesome, you don't want to destroy it by not having it. So here's what we've got so far. But you can see if I turn off the layer I just drew, I still have my initial layer that was the pencil test layer. And this is just kind of like adding to it. And you can see now I can just show you what I just did. So these are the things that we did. We also talked about how we could use a static layer by clicking and creating a normal layer this time. Notice the color purple for these layers, right? Those are static layers, these are video layers, and they even have different icons in the layers palette. But the static layer allowed us to work with the idea of creating maybe a constant something in the scene. So we talked about creating some type of like timing chart as well, and then setting it up so for success where each successive thing were to bounce like a bouncing ball timing chart, right? And so based on this timing chart, we were then able to then go back, maybe create a bouncing ball on that video layer starting here. And again, this is using my mouse and not keyboard, or not a Wacom tablet. And then going to the next frame, and then because we want to see the previous frame, we can go to onion skin, and now we can see where that ball was position wise, and we can just draw the next one based on our timing chart here, and then 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 we'll even draw a little bit of shade or shadow, and then it bounces back, and then bounces here, and then bounces here, then bounces here, and then it comes to the top where it started. And so this is 10 frames, so obviously I'm just going to have it go up a little bit more and just kind of stay there. So now we have 12 frames of bounce. And so if I turn the onion skin off so I can see what we've done, this is the bouncing ball. And that's a little overview of what we did in class.